I challenge myself to beat Final Fantasy VII. Sorry, I got something caught in my throat. I challenged myself to beat Final Fantasy VII with only Cloud. I've already gone through Final Fantasy 8, 9, and 10 with the protagonist, so it just seemed right that I'd give Cloud his chance. The full set of rules are also in the Discredibly-Do, but briefly, Cloud is the only character who can take meaningful action, and everybody else has gotta be dead before he can. If Cloud can't be in the party because of the story, though, anything goes. And since Cloud isn't allowed to have friends in this run, chocobo racing and summons are off the table. That's right, no Knights of the Round, people, it's too easy. Our story begins in the beautiful and picturesque city of Midgar. And yes, that is the canon pronunciation. In Japanese, Midogaru. And after doing a backflip out of a train, we face off against our first two Shinra soldiers. And this battle is pitifully easy given that it's meant to be done solo. And after proving that size matters with our long and hard sword, we get to name Cloud. And so naturally, I name him Alone. And we also have to name Barret. And of course, I name him Dead, because that's the way he'll spend most of the game. And just to give him a head start in the very first battle, I kill him. And we are on another mission, and that mission is to make the Mako reactor dead. But this giant scorpion thing is not okay with that. Fortunately, it doesn't have a lot of damage output, nor any special mechanics to stymie us, so I'm able to take it down pretty quickly. There will be much harder enemies to come. So we set our bomb, and I spend about 5 minutes trying to figure out how this damn elevator works. I hate it. Then the reactor goes boom and Wedge's butt catches on fire. Stop running around, dude. Stop, drop, and roll. And then we meet up with Tifa at the pinball arcade. And we call her Magikarp because during this run, she's gonna be a useless fish for the entire game. Then we head to blow up another reactor. We get caught because of our fake IDs on a train, and we fight a really easy robot boss. Unfortunately, we then take a huge fall into a church, and we're met with this little bit of dialogue, which sounds like the beginning to a very different type of game, you know what I mean? And we find out that this very gentle soul is Aerith, and I name her Alive. Fitting, right? Because she's so full of life. I should definitely keep her in my party for the entire game. As it turns out, though, she's being pursued by the Turks, so after barreling through the competition, we head back to the slums. After a romantic date on the slide with Alive, we see Magikarp being carted off to Don Corneo's house. Since she hasn't evolved into Gyarados yet, I guess we gotta save her. But rather than just busting in, we take the stealth route. We put Alone in drag, enter a beauty pageant, which he loses, and then go on to Don Corneo, who catches us in a trap and drops us into the sewers. And that leads us to our next boss, the Pigfish. I kill off Magikarp and Alive, who have been revived by an instay, and I go to town on him. By this time, Cloud has his second limit break, Cross Slash, which not only does damage, but also can cast the stop status on the opponent, which is a perfect time to heal. The boss himself casts the Sadness status, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and will be very important to this run. This boss also casts the Sewer Tsunami spell. This spell damages the entire party, but also damages the boss, and it actually damages him for more than our limit break does, which is a little bit crazy to me. I'm not sure why they did that. This isn't a hard fight. You don't need help from the boss to kill the boss. But eventually, he bites the dust, and we head through the train graveyard to the Sector 7 slums. And our next boss, and our first big challenge of the run, is Reno. Reno doesn't do that much damage, but he does have a unique spell called Pyramid. This spell encapsulates one character and traps them inside of a pyramid, preventing all actions. But the pyramid does one other thing. It flags that character as dead. That means if both of my other characters are dead and I get trapped inside a pyramid, I am in big trouble. I would even go so far as to say that if Alone himself gets trapped inside one of those pyramids, we're in bigger trouble because then the game is just over. The only way to dispel the pyramid is to have one of your other characters attack the pyramid. The first time I try this fight, Alone immediately gets trapped inside of a pyramid. Unfortunately, who Reno decides to put inside of a pyramid is RNG based. And while I could have fudged the rules and said that Dead is technically allowed to attack Cloud even if he's inside of a pyramid, that didn't feel right. Attacking Alone while he's in this state technically means that he's not attacking alone, he's attacking a structure that Reno has created to contain him, which feels like meaningful action, which goes against the spirit of this run. So I load my save and I try again. And fortunately this time, Dead gets trapped in a pyramid. And since being inside of the pyramid is essentially the same thing as being dead, I now allow Alone to attack. But unfortunately, Reno just uses his pyramid spell again. And on attempt number 3, he casts pyramid on Alone in his first turn. So for now, I change the rules a tiny bit. Dead is the only one that I keep alive, and yes, I see the irony there, and he's allowed to attack Alone if Alone has a pyramid around him. But Alone is only allowed to attack if Dead has a pyramid around him or is dead. And with some lucky RNG, I get through this battle on my 5th try. I forgot to update my death count on the 4th try, sorry. But I will come back to this fight near the end of the video, so stay tuned for that, because I did figure out a way to complete this battle with only Alone, but that method would have made the rest of the run a lot less interesting. So I'll take that L for now. And even though we win the battle, Reno now destroys Sector 7. He also kidnaps Alive. And let me just say that I love this part of the game. Unlike in many other Final Fantasy games, from the very beginning of the game, the stakes are very high. Shinra is actively killing people that you know and kidnapping others. And it's at this point that we learn more about Alive and her adopted mother, Elmira Gainsborough. She waited for 5 days for her husband to return on the train from the Wutai War, but the one who arrived instead was Afalna along with Alive. Afalna died at the train station that day, and her final wish to Elmira was that she take care of her daughter. But now there's only one person who can save Alive from Shinra, Alone. So after purchasing some batteries, we climb up Wall Market to the surface and invade Shinra HQ. Rather than fight our way through the front door, I decide to get some cardio in and take the stairs. And after finishing our climb and fighting a few Gundams, I decide to take the elevator back downstairs just to make sure I didn't miss any items. And this choice leads to a devastating soft lock. When heading back into the elevator, I lose control of Alone completely. All he can do is keep walking into the elevator, but he's not walking into the elevator. Come on! So after a reset, a couple shots of tequila, and some hateful expletives, it's time to climb the stairs again. And this time we remember to bring our Fitbit. But eventually we meet Red 13, and we name him Bidoof. And he's only a little bit less useless than Magikarp because he can learn hidden machine moves. And to prevent Bidoof from copulating with Alive, we kill him in the next battle against Mr. Tomato Head and his 3 potatoes. All 4 targets in this battle can do pretty good damage, but whenever you kill one of the potatoes, the Tomato Head just revives it. I learned that the hard way, of course, because I completely forgot how this boss works when I went into it, but eventually I realized it and I just go after Mr. Tomato Head. Fortunately, he's vulnerable to the stop status effect, so whenever I cast Cross Slash on him, I get an excellent chance to heal myself. Eventually, though, I do manage to take him down. Unfortunately, on our way out, we get captured by the Turks. We're thrown into prison, but we're freed, and everyone in this place seems to be dead. Even the president has a sword shoved through his back, so now I think it's a good time to leave.
No, Heidi, no!
But not before we have our first boss fight where Alone can't be there, the elevator robot. And even though the characters in this fight are pretty low level and don't have any materia equipped, I have a strategy for this fight. This boss can only be hit at range, so the only attack I can hit them with is Barrett's attack and limit breaks. But I can still throw items, and grenades actually do more damage than Barrett's attack does anyway. And Alive, of course, is on healing duty with her limit break and an occasional potion. Not a terrible encounter, all things considered. We then immediately enter a boss battle between Alone and Rufus, and this battle's scaled to only have one character, so it isn't really too much of a problem. Upon escape, we do the motorcycle minigame, but soon our joyride comes to an end and we fight the giant tanky thing. And this boss too goes down without much of a fight. And now we exit Midgar. The game really starts here. And of course it starts with a long flashback from Alone and Magikarp. Alone and Sephiroth actually go way back. They visited Magikarp and Alone's hometown on an investigation conducted by the Shinra Corporation. There, Sephiroth and Alone discover that the Shinra Corporation is using Mako energy to create monsters out of humans. Sephiroth searches for answers inside of the old Shinra mansion. What he finds is that an organism called Geneva, which was thought to be dead, was found in a 2,000-year-old crater. And Geneva was an ancient. This kicked off the Geneva Project. The Geneva Project was meant to give people the power of the ancients, or the Cetra. And the result of that experiment was Sephiroth. Sephiroth sets the city of Nibelheim ablaze. He then breaks into Jennifer's chamber and gravely injures Magikarp, who was trying to stop him. Alone confronts him, but for now, the story stops here. Alone simply doesn't remember what happened. But let's get back to the run. We now head to the Chocobo farm where I get the Choco/Mog Materia, and we won't be using it, but I love seeing the Chocobos dance. And now begins one of the most frustrating parts of this run. Now, I said I wouldn't be doing Chocobo racing, but I am allowed to ride Chocobos. That's right, just because you ride someone doesn't mean they're your friend. So the first step is to get the Chocobo lore Materia as well as a bunch of greens. But there's a problem. You see, the way Chocobo catching works in this game is that you feed a Chocobo in battle greens so that it doesn't run away when you use attacks. However, the greens only last for a finite period of time. Quite a short period, actually. Basically the length of one ATB gauge fill-up. And once they're no longer eating the greens, they'll run away if anyone attacks. Usually it's no problem because you have 3 people in your party, one throws the greens, the other ones attack, great. But with only 1 member in your party, it's quite a bit harder, so it takes me about an hour to catch a Chocobo. But once I do, I head through the cave, meet up with the Turks, and then my Final Fantasy VII app crashes. Fortunately though, I saved right before I entered the cave, so I didn't lose too much progress. We then go to Condor Landing, where I grind for a little bit of gil so I can protect the Condor. I love tower defense games, so I can't just leave this one alone. But while grinding, I get thunder blasted by one of these stupid bird things, and I die. Yeah, that was stupid. But I pick myself up and try again, and then I help them protect the Condor nest. We then move on to Junon Harbor, where we fight a giant fish boss, which is no issue, really. But after the boss, we have to do quote-unquote CPR on a little girl who drowned. And as a physician, I'm offended by this scene. They're not doing CPR, they're doing rescue breaths. They don't have the skills. And speaking of learning new skills, have you ever wondered if there's an online community with thousands of courses to help you learn new creative skills? Well, too bad. Read a book. Now we ride a dolphin into the Junon military base and we celebrate the month of marching. And my performance is so well loved that Rufus sends me a grenade. Oh, Daddy, you shouldn't have. I do well enough in the gun show, though, to receive the Force Stealer weapon, which gives double AP to my materia. And after this incredible display of gunmanship, we find ourselves face to face with the most gorgeous boat I've ever seen. Listen, guys, I know I shouldn't, but I'm really thinking about buying this boat. She's seaworthy, she holds a lot of cargo. Genova! Don't buy a boat! So this boss, the Genova arm, presents a really big problem. It can dish out pretty reasonable damage and do about 1/3 of my health, but I'm able to heal that off. The real problem with this boss is that it casts stop. And when it casts stop on Alone this time, it's able to get in 4 attacks and completely destroy him. And I don't have any items that defend against stop, so the only solution is to grind. So I grind to level 16, and I get inflicted with stop, and it has too many turns, and I can't cure in time. I died alone. And my 3rd try does not go much better. But on my 4th try, I get lucky. Stop misses a couple of times, and it hits a little bit later in the battle. And I don't know whether it just lasted less time or Genova arm for some reason got fewer attacks, but I survive, I'm able to cure up and finish it off. And as a reward, we get to go hang out with a Hojo on a tropical beach. And while he does seem very relaxed, I notice that he's still wearing his lab coat, and that cannot be sanitary. The next segment of the run was streamed live. So if you ever want more insight about how I defeat specific enemies or how I approach these challenges, stop on by. And if you want to be updated directly whenever I go live or post a new video, join my Discord. I'll put a link to that in the description-do. After falling through the broken train tracks and grabbing a few items, we head to the Golden Saucer. And we meet Kate Sith, who, on the recommendation of one of my channel members, we'd name Keanu. So we head to Battle Square, and unfortunately, we find that everyone there is dead. We are wrongfully accused of murder and sent to the desert, and in the desert we fight Dyne. Unfortunately though, this is a Barret only battle. I have worked hard to get Barret the least amount of experience as possible so that he's easy to kill. Also, I left Barret without armor because I was originally playing with a rule that Barret couldn't have any equipment. I soon realized that that rule was stupid because I'm killing everyone before I do any damage, because the point is that Dyne totally destroys me. Dyne has an HP trigger where when his HP goes down below about half, he'll get 2 attacks attacks to my 1. And I tried this fight a few times, and I just wasn't seeing a way forward. Until my chat saved me. I wasn't aware of it before this run, but the anger and sadness statuses have very unique effects. When a character is angry, the amount of damage that they take is increased, but their limit gauge also increases faster. And while that won't be helpful for this battle, the sadness effect does exactly the opposite. Less damage taken and less limit gauge filled. And you can actually inflict this status on yourself with the tranquilizer item. So I go back to fight Dyne with this new status afflicted upon myself, and I do not succeed. I die. But on the second time, I finally heal appropriately and make it through this torturous fight. And because of that, we're allowed to return to the surface to race chocobos. As I mentioned before, this is the only time that we're gonna race chocobos because it's mandatory. But I do win the race, and I feel pretty good about that. Then we head to the ruined reactor, where I fight an optional boss battle with Reno and Rude. Now, the strategy in this battle is that you should attack only Rude, because Rude heals Reno, and that's rude. And of course, on my first time, I do exactly the opposite, and I get totally wrecked. My chat did try to warn me, though. It was my fault. But the second time, I shape out, go after Rude, and I defeat them. And I earn the Death Blow Materia, which will be very useful later in the run. This Materia confers a command aptly called Death Blow, and contrary to what you might think, it has nothing to do with Chris Maloney and Oz. And if you decide to Google that, please don't do it at work. Bruh. Next, we head to Cosmo Canyon, where I finally get the ability to buy ethers. This matters a lot because the cure spell is my main source of healing, and I want to use minimal ins because ins revive your other party members, and I need the other party members to be dead. Then we hang out with Buggin' Huggin', learn some stuff, and then head to the Materia shop to get an HP plus Materia. It increases your HP, which is important because you need more HP to live through things, and I hope that's obvious. The next boss, who kind of looks like an undead Valkyrie, is in fact undead, making it one of the easiest bosses in the game. A single X potion finishes it off, after which we meet Bidoof's parents. Unfortunately, their life has been a little bit rocky. Next, we head on to Magikarp and Alone's hometown, Nibelheim. It seems that it's recovered since Alone was last there. My stream chat encouraged me to fight the monster that lets you unlock Vincent at this point, and this fight actually went pretty well. At first. Unfortunately, about halfway through the battle, this guy goes berserk, and my chat knew and they didn't tell me because they wanted me to be surprised. But a better surprise would have been a device that helps me keep my online information private and see what's on streaming services in other countries. But no such device exists, so I move on with the run. Now it's time to fight a giant spider. This guy does a lot of damage, and about halfway through the fight, he starts healing himself. It's ultimately a battle of attrition, but I have no way to do damage above and beyond what he heals. So in my first battle with this monster, I lose that battle of attrition and I take the L. But once again, my chat saves me. This monster is susceptible to the poison status, and the poison status negates all of the damage that this monster heals in the second half of the fight. But this monster has one more unique quality. It casts the Trine spell, which is a multi-target lightning damage spell. You can acquire it through the enemy skill materia. Basically, if you have the enemy skill materia equipped and the monster hits you with the spell, you learn it, even if you die from it. Next, we head over to Rocketville and meet Sid. And he seems like someone who might give us a boat, so I name him Boatfriend. After that, we fight the Shinra executive Palmer, who is pitifully easy. He fights using a gun that shoots elemental bullets, but it seems like he runs out of ammo at some point. So he basically just sits there while I destroy him. And then we do Boatfriend a favor. We turn his plane into a boat, so he doesn't have to buy one. So once again, we use somebody else's boat, which is the best kind of boat. So now we go to this dude's house, whom I never would have found had I not had a guide as a kid, and he tells us that he sold the Keystone to Dio, who owns the Golden Saucer. So we go to the Golden Saucer, we earn the Keystone in the battle zone, and then we go to the Temple of the Ancients. And the first boss battle there is with this dragon. And this dragon does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I forgot to use my patented decrease the damage by being sad strategy. But side note, don't you take more damage in life when you're sad? So the dragon kills me. Not a therapist in sight. But on my second try, I remember to use a tranquilizer and I take it down. But now we're on to one of the hardest bosses of the game, the wall monster thing. Fortunately, the dragon boss I just fought dropped a dragon armlet, so I equipped that for starters. It decreases fire, ice, and electric damage by half, which will be helpful in this boss because it has a move called Cave-In, which does ice damage. But that is the least of my worries. This boss's regular attacks, where it drops a rock on you, are far more powerful. Even with sadness, they're doing almost half of my health. And this battle actually gets really tough off about halfway through. The power of this wall monster's regular attacks increased by about 150%, and I bet you can guess how this ends up. Yeah, I died. So after attempting to beat the wall and losing to it a couple more times, I get to grinding. Fortunately, the Trine spell, which I got from that spider earlier, makes quick work of a lot of the enemies in this cavern, so I'm able to get up my levels pretty quickly. I ultimately grind up to level 27, which after the dragon puts me at level 28. Now it takes 4 hits with this boss's main attack to kill me, which means that I'm now able to kill it. And I should mention that while I was here, I grabbed the ribbon item from the clock area. The ribbon accessory protects against all status effects. The main one I'm worried about is Petrify, which is an instant game over. But Stop, Slow, Mini, and Frog are also pretty damaging. Anyway, we grab the black materia, which is the temple itself, and I guess we just give it to Sephiroth? Yeah, that's a little weird. And then Alive passive-aggressively leaves the party to head to the City of the Ancients. And when we meet up with her, this is what we see. Unfortunately, footage from this scene has been lost due to a memory card corruption. However, you can see here a thrilling reenactment. And after this, we move on to another Geneva battle. This Geneva form uses only water-type skills, but I didn't know that, so I get taken out. However, in the City of the Ancients, we got the Water Ring, which absorbs all water-type skills. With that, I'm basically invincible. So, easy fight. But let me just take a second here to talk about this scene. As a child playing this game, I was definitely affected by this scene, but I'm affected by it more profoundly now. And Aerith's striking death is hardly the most poignant part. It's actually the battle afterward. It's a reminder that even after something terrible happens, life doesn't pause. After a family member or friend dies, very few people have the luxury to just leave their obligations at the wayside for a while. There's work to do, people to take care of, other monsters to slay, metaphorically anyway. If we all had that little bit of extra time, maybe death and tragedy wouldn't be so hard to process. That's enough of that. I hate being sincere. Back to the run. Alive is dead. So let's go snowboarding. We navigate the frozen tundra and I take a death to some penguins. On my way through the caves, I find the Aurora Armlet, and then we fight the two-headed dragon. Fortunately, with the Aurora Armlet equipped, I gain health when ice spells are cast on me. And certain elemental spells in this game have an interesting quality. Elemental spells can have more than one elemental type. So one of these dragons has ice breath, one of them has fire breath, and then one of their attacks makes them combine their breath together to create fire and ice breath, which I absorb. So basically, it's impossible for me to die in this fight. If I wanted to make it even easier, I could have equipped the fire ring as well, but meh. Anyway, the dragon goes down. We head through the mountains through one of my least favorite parts of this game, where you have to go through these wind tunnel things. The first one is not really a problem. You just wait until it calms down. But the second one gets a little glitchy on me. Why is it doing that? And the third one is just a complete shitstorm. And at the end of this fight, we fight another Geneva form, which isn't really much of a problem. Its damage output is far lower than that of the prior Geneva fight in the City of the Ancients. And we now have a ribbon, so whenever it tries to cast stop, it wastes its turn. So we kill it, and apparently that Geneva had the black materia, so we pick that back up. We give it to Bidoof, and I'm sure he's just gonna keep it, not give it to Sephiroth. Alone undergoes a mental breakdown, and of course, Bidoof does the Bidoof thing and brings us the black materia, which we then give to Sephiroth, which sets off a chain reaction. Sephiroth now has the black materia, and he's surrounded by Mako energy, so he summons the meteor. Cloud continues to have a mental breakdown. I don't know what's going on with him. But I do know that he now leaves the party, and we are captured. Keanu is going to be my main damage dealer for this section. He's at the highest level because he came in the latest. I also kept him out of the party because anyone not in the party gains half of the experience gained in battle. I get a little arrogant here, and I get killed by one of the Shinra soldiers, twice. And it took me a while to realize it, but the reason I kept dying is that I forgot to equip armor, so basically I'm stupid. And then Magikarp uses Flail and slaps Scarlet into submission. And after she gets pummeled, we steal an airboat, which is fine because it's not ours, we stole it. And now we head to Midil to meet Cloud, who's catatonic. Then Scarlet tells Rufus that she wants to extract the essence from his huge, throbbing materia. But Boatfriend gets jealous because he wants to shove the huge materia into his enormous, gaping planetarium. So we head to the Condor fight, which I lose, because really it doesn't matter. I'm not going to use Master Materia. But I do complete the train part of the game successfully. Yeah, Boatfriend also drives trains. seconds. And now that we've collected all the huge materia that we can, we head back to Midgar to see Alone. And this triggers the first battle with Ultimate Weapon. And of course, I lose because his ultimate beam attack one-hit KOs everybody except Keanu, who was not at full health. All aboard the fail boat, which is my boat. And did I save after I finished the train sequence? No, so I have to do it again. Fortunately, after shifting around some materia and equipment, I managed to survive it. But an earthquake breaks apart the ground and Alone and Magikarp fall into the life stream. And this is probably my favorite part of the game. It's revealed that Cloud was never a member of Soldier. He was just a normal soldier in the Shinra army. But he did come back to Nibelheim with Sephiroth and Zack. He just disguised himself because he was ashamed of his failures. He ultimately stabbed Sephiroth after he set the city on fire. But he and the other survivors of Nibelheim became Hojo's experiments. Hojo injected Genova cells into Cloud. And since Sephiroth was bathed in Genova cells prior to his birth, he can control anyone who has Genova cells within them. And that is why Cloud gave the black materia to Sephiroth. But okay, back to me being an idiot. The final piece of huge materia is in the underwater reactor. So we head underground and we see it being loaded into a huge submarine. But before we can chase after it, we are assaulted by a huge, overly handsy mechon. And unfortunately, this guy has an annoying quality. His arms can grab a character and immediately incapacitate them. Even though the character grabbed by the arm isn't technically dead, he's flagged as dead. This means that if Cloud gets grabbed, it's game over, which is exactly what happens my first time I fight this boss. Fortunately though, there's a way to circumvent this. Each arm has 10,000 HP, and at full HP, it has a 1 out of 32 chance to use the arm grabby skill. But between 7,500 and 9,999 HP, that chance falls to 1 out of 128. I like those odds a lot better, and those odds are enough to get me the win the second time I do this battle. Okay, I lied, I died the second time. But the third time, that's the ticket, and once it dies, we hop onto our own personal submarine. And it's a very safe submarine that's not made out of carbon fibers. Bruh. I win the submarine battle, which is one of my favorite minigames in Final Fantasy VII, and then we grab the Ancient's Key and the huge materia. I also head to the Sunken Gelnica. There I grab Alone's Heaven's Cloud weapon, which is extremely powerful, as well as the double cut materia. Usually I prefer to measure twice and cut once, but I'll make an exception for this game. I also fight the optional boss battle with Rude and Reno, which should be really easy. Unfortunately, I forgot to re-equip Alone with his ribbon, and Reno spends most of the battle casting confusion on him, so I die. But with the ribbon equipped, this battle is far easier. And our next stop is the rocket ship. We fight one boss battle, this time only with Rude, and it goes pretty well. So we take off in the rocket, I save the huge materia with just 1 minute to spare, and then we take the escape pod to crash back down to Earth. After a final visit to the City of the Ancients, 3 terrible things happen. Number 1, Shinra relocates the Mako cannon to Midgar so it can use the power of the reactors to fire at the northern crater. Number 2, Diamond Weapon appears to stop them. And number 3, I got a tummy ache. Being a YouTuber is hard. And perhaps it's my new weapons, perhaps it's the fact that I ground a little too much in the Sunken Gelnica, and perhaps it's just the Pepto-Bismol that I took, but Diamond Weapon goes down pretty easily. Then I have a brief fight with the Turks, who are not a big deal, and then I fight their robot. And listen guys, I hate this fight. Not because it's particularly hard, but because in Soviet Midgar, robot reflect you. So I cast regen on myself, and it ends up just reflecting it onto the robot, making the battle last much longer. And because I was watching YouTube while I was doing this run, I end up casting Cure 2 on myself, which gets reflected back onto the robot and makes the battle last longer. But eventually it goes down. And that brings us to the final boss battle before we enter the Northern Cave, the battle with Hojo. In the first part of the battle, he summons 2 monsters that really don't do much. But phase 2 is the hardest part of this battle. Hojo transforms into a monster with a mouth that is probably used to eat large eggs. And while it has the potential to do some big damage, it really isn't all that challenging. Hojo's third form is about as easy as the first. It likes to cast a lot of status effects, and because I have a ribbon equipped, it ends up wasting a lot of turns. In addition, a few battles ago I got the Meteor Rain Limit Break. This thing does a ton of damage, about 9 times more than Cloud's normal attacks do. So within a few minutes, Hojo's third form is down. Diamond Weapon gets shot through the chest, and we head to the northern crater. But before we go in, Magikarp shows Alone her southern crater. And before we go to fight Sephiroth, we have some cleaning up to do. First of all, I fight Ultima Weapon. Of course, I fight him like 8 times, because that's what you gotta do, but he does go down. Not a problem for Alone. And then I go fight the safe boss in Nibelheim. He's super easy now, but it feels real good to get him. And because of that, I also recruit Vincent, whom I name Late. And finally, I try to kill Ruby Weapon, and it's a complete failed boat. But again, it's an optional boss, that's okay. Maybe I'll try it again in another video. Leave me a comment if you want to see it. And now we're on to the final area of the game, the Northern Crater. And if you've made it this far in the video, please do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're feeling particularly passionate about my videos, come join me in my Discord. Many of my subscribers tell me that YouTube will not notify them about my videos, but I notify my Discord members the very second a video comes out and the very second that I go live with one of these challenge runs, because I stream them right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate each and every one of you. I head through the Northern Cave and I make sure to pick up as many items as possible. There are lots of source items here which boost my stats permanently, as well as a bunch of great materia. My favorite is of course Mega All, which will come in handy in the final battle. It makes all of your commands and magic affect all enemies. When I reach the middle of the Northern Cave, I place my save crystal and I send everyone down the left path. This is because your teammates that explore an opposite fork will pick up items and give them to you. Not ideal given that this is a solo run. But finally, it's time to fight Sephiroth. But not before we fight Sephiroth's mommy Jenova. It has 2 tentacles that can do some strong damage and a central portion which you have to kill to end the fight. However, once the tentacles are dead, this boss is pretty easy. The center portion wastes some turns casting stop, and I have a ribbon equipped, so that's not affecting me. Though as you might expect, Jenova goes down. Oh, and in case I forgot to mention, Jenova is not an ancient. She's a being that came from outer space to destroy the Earth. Anyway, she ends with Ultima, but I had cast Magic Barrier on myself, so I'm all good. And now we're on to Sephiroth. Sephiroth's first form is Bizarro Sephiroth. Depending on the party level and who you recruited, this boss can have 3 different configurations. However, in my case, because I left Barrett completely unleveled, we fight the one-party version, meaning we don't have to split up into other parties. In this battle, the only one who attacks is the body. One wing heals the body, and the other 2 modify the attacks the body uses. And the core is invincible whenever the 2 side pieces are alive. And it surprises me, but this form of Sephiroth goes down pretty quickly. And now we're on to Safer Sephiroth, so called because he always wears a rubber. I cast Barrier and Magic Barrier on myself to prevent some of his magic damage, and he does the same. The primary annoyance in this battle is Sephiroth's Supernova attack. It does a fixed amount of damage based on the character's current HP. It literally can't kill you. It also casts a bunch of statuses, but again, the ribbon prevents those from affecting me. But the worst part is that this attack takes a full 2 minutes, so if I lose this battle, I lose a whole lot of time. But here's the thing, because this attack does a lot of damage and it cannot kill me, it has one important effect that is deleterious to Safer Sephiroth. It charges my limit break up super fast, so with patience, a lot of healing, and several meteor rains, Safer Sephiroth goes down. I have beaten Final Fantasy VII with only Cloud. Hold it! Yeah, there's one more enemy that we have to fight. If you've seen my other RPG challenges, you know that the final boss is rarely actually the final boss in these games. In Super Mario RPG, it was a cake. In Final Fantasy X, it was a blitzball. And in this game, it's a pyramid. And I actually could have killed it earlier, but it would have made this run awful, because basically to kill Reno, it's just a bunch of grinding. I have to grind until I get Meteor Rain. And the way to get it is to just kill a certain number of enemies. And by the time that happens, I'm at level 16. Had I done this grind during the run, it would have trivialized a ton of boss fights. But even this huge amount of level gain does not trivialize Reno, because Meteor Rain has a problem. It attacks all enemies, and the pyramids are coded as enemies. And what this means is that if I have a teammate who's trapped in a pyramid, Meteor Rain will not do enough damage to kill Reno because it will also attack the pyramid. But there's another problem. Magic attacks don't hurt the pyramids. And if your limit break is available, you cannot use a regular attack. This means that even if I wanted to break the pyramid around my allies, I'd have to waste that limit break, and the level 3 limit breaks take forever to charge. I'd be trapped in a pyramid before I even had a chance. But there is one way to break the pyramids that does not involve using my limit break. But I died 10 times before I realize it. The item that hurts the pyramid and also hurts Reno is Deadly Waste. So here's the strategy. Leave Magikarp dead for this battle. Then then get dead as close to death as possible. This next part is all RNG. Use the power of prayer to make him get pyramided first. Now, since he's flag dead, I can use the deadly waste to both hurt Reno and kill the pyramid. Then either Dead kills himself or Reno kills him. And then I can finally unleash an unfettered meteor rain. After this, it just takes one more ice spell to finish Reno off. So now I can really say that I have beaten Final Fantasy VII with only Cloud. Thanks for watching. Join the Discord. Bye bye.